One of the things I love about Sea of Thieves is the fact that every time you wake up in that tavern, a brand new adventure awaits you. For example, today I was planning on doing a little merchant voyage stacking, but was promptly interrupted by the beautiful sounds of a Fort of Fortune. After some failed attempts of trying to avoid the temptation, I eventually gave in and began sailing to an outpost for some supplies. Once at the outpost, I replaced my Merchant Alliance flag with the much more appropriate Reaper flag and made a quick note that there weren't any other emissaries on the server. Fully stocked up, I reached the fort, which was surprisingly empty. I then hatched a plan to effectively take out each wave with maximum efficiency, but unfortunately, I died. Actually, I died a lot, and to make matters worse, each time I died, I'd have to take out this skeleton at the tower, which would bombard my ship, draining me of my wood supply. Adding to the problem, this other skeleton would fire, but he couldn't hit my boat, instead settling on the next best thing, which happened to be my rowboat. Now this rowboat would end up saving my life later, but I didn't really know this yet, so I didn't pay too much mind to its dwindling health. But the plan was set. Lure all the skeletons to this doorway, where the business ends of my cannons would be waiting. I attempted to do this for about an hour and a half before realizing that doing this alone would be much harder than anticipated. I then reached out to Leo, who has appeared in several of my other videos, and soon after, he had joined the crew. With an extra hand on deck, the fort became much easier, and we sailed through wave after wave. When finally reaching the bosses, we unleashed all the cannons at them, effectively diminishing their health. But there was a problem sneaking up on us. Not only did I continue to find ways to die over and over again, but we were also quickly running out of cannonballs. No one had pulled up on us yet, but I did not want to be caught defenseless if that happened. But to our relief, good old Horatio gracefully decided to pass away, leaving us with a vault key and 6 cannonballs to our name. After opening the vault and admiring all our loot, we began wondering why no one had been drawn in by the freshly finished Fort of Fortune, but we'd get our answer soon enough. Now, we're both relatively new players, so we buried the Athena kegs. That way we could sell all the loot and then come back later for some mischief, but this led to be a mistake. After loading up the final pieces onto our boat, we got the answer to why no one was attacking. The server merge had us on end, and I noticed quite a few ships on the map, including another Reaper. Before leaving, I checked to see if the kegs had survived the merge, but unbeknownst to me, these kegs ignited as soon as I dug them up, and with no way to stop it, our greatest weapon was gone in a glorious explosion. After this upsetting loss, we set sail for an outpost to sell the Athena chest and some of the other Athena loot, as well as stock up, because 6 cannonballs would not cut it in a server as full of this. Reaching the outpost, we spotted a galleon and a brig clashing in the distance, and to our surprise, the brig made quick work of the larger ship. Unfortunately for us, they had spotted us and marked us as their new target. After selling the fabled Athena chest, we set out for Reaper's hideout in order to make the most out of our grade 5 emissary, but the brig was hot on our tail. Outnumbered and outgunned, our only option was to turn away from the Reapers and against the wind, where they would have a hard time catching up. A few boarding attempts later solidified the fact that these guys weren't messing around. At one point, they had even caught the wind, and pulling up within cannon distance, we started firing.
No, we're completely against the wind. No, they didn't. Like I said, we're completely against the wind.
Amidst the flying wood planks and the strong smell of burning gunpowder, I had managed to take out both their sails, but my inability to communicate with my crewmate had made this opportunity slip away, which was a mistake as we wouldn't get another like it. Pulling away against the wind, it was now that I was really wishing we still had those kegs, which would have made a quick end to our pursuers. We continued to gain distance, but we both knew we were running out of the map, and they knew it too. Nearing the Devil's War, we had 2 options. Turn and fight with the odds heavily stacked against us, or go the coward's way out, and sail our loot into the Red Sea. Either way, the outcome ended with us losing our hard-earned loot, which I wouldn't stand for. But in a moment of desperation, I came up with one final plan. If you were to remember, we still have a rowboat attached to the back of our boat. And with quite a few rocks in the distance, I began to hatch a plan. Loading up the rowboat with the most valuable of our treasure, I explained to Leo that the only way we're going to get out of this is by turning it around a rock. And while we're out of sight of our stalkers, we drop the rowboat which has all the loot, and lure them in the opposite direction while the rowboat full of riches slowly makes its way to an outpost. It was our last hope, so we had to give it a shot. While loading, Leo brought a great point. If we don't have any loot on board when we eventually sink, these guys would catch on and scour the seas for our little piñata of a boat, and it was decided. We would leave the least valuable items on board, so when we sank, these guys thought they had won, while majority of the money to be made is being sold at an outpost miles away. Approaching the rock, we were still nervous, as we would only get one shot at this, and if they spotted the rowboat, it was game over. As Leo was the better navigator out of the two of us, he volunteered to stay on board, luring the brig away for as long as he could while I would row to safety. And before we knew it, the moment of truth had arrived. But luck was on our side. The brig had noticed us turning around the rock and changed its course, heading to intercept our ship on the other side, meaning I would be completely hidden behind the rock. And as soon as they were out of sight, I dropped the rowboat in the dark waters and waited. They had taken the bait. I started to row towards the direction of the nearest outpost, but the waves were high and choppy, making it difficult. After about 5 minutes, Leo had reported the inevitable. They had caught up to him, and our ship was about to be very familiar with the bottom of the ocean. But he had done his job, and he did it well. I was far enough away, and they would have no shot at catching up to me now. And one final confirmation told me that our ship was lost to the seas. It was around this time that I had spotted what looked to be an outpost in the distance. In quite a poetic fashion, it happened to be the exact same outpost I had spawned in earlier that day. And coincidentally, the same one I had found this very rowboat I was in. I excitedly changed courses to head straight for it, but once I got closer, one of my greatest fears were confirmed. A sloop was spawned in port, and with no means of defense, I was extremely vulnerable. I hastily made the decision to take my chances with this sloop in front of me, rather than give up our stash with the brig, which was somewhere out in the distance. I was fully prepared to fight to the death for what was in this rowboat, but like an angel descending from the sky, I spotted a familiar username on the horizon. Leo had found me, and I started quickly rowing towards him. Making a quick yet smooth pickup, I couldn't be happier to be walking on a ship's deck again, but we weren't in the clear yet. We approached the sloop, but after taking a few shots at him, I heard a voice.
Why not? Just start shooting.
I jumped in the water to negotiate terms, telling him that we won't sink him, but we do need him off of the outpost. He then went on to explain how he had been grinding arena all day and was just admiring his new ship parts. Glad I had found a friendly, I began explaining the situation we were in, and he mentioned he actually had saw me rowing in. Leo warned about sharing details, but I trusted this guy. He said he was just about to get off, and sure enough, his ship was scuttled soon after. At this point, I wasn't even upset about not making as much money, as selling each one of these items felt like its own victory. We had officially outsmarted a much stronger opponent, and we'd come out victorious. After selling, and the rowboat was empty, Leo threw a blunderbomb at it, and much to our surprise, it instantly sank. This rowboat, which was the only thing keeping us from going home empty-handed, was on its last legs this entire time. You remember that skeleton from earlier? One more cannon shot and we would have had no escape from the bloodthirsty brig. And this concludes our story. I'd like to thank anyone who made it this far, and as cliche as it sounds, if you really did enjoy this video, please leave a like and comment your suggestions about what to do next. This is a very different style of video compared to my other content, but if it does well, I have no issue making more. And with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.